Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to another MAMG Let's Play of 999. When we left off, we did the knife ending, and so many things happened in that. We found 2 9 doors. Somebody or something is inside a coffin, knocking, which you guys even teased me about a little bit because it creeps me out quite tremendously. But it's really fun to see you guys changing your theories and altering what you think is the truth and what may be happening. However, this game is not done messing with us yet. I was going through and playing back in the lab area, and I was going to go back to the safe ending. I need to get that ending, and so I need to repeat all these areas, and I was going to do it off screen and make it super easy for you guys, but this game has other things in plan. So, when you hold right on the D-pad when you're playing this game, if you've already cleared it once, you actually get to bypass all the dialogue you've already read. However, it stopped right here. And at first, I couldn't figure out why, so I saved it, and then I kind of scrolled through a few, areas, or not areas, but, pieces of the conversation, and it's actually really different. You actually get to learn about Lotus and what she did for her job. It's pretty cool, so I want to check it out and let you guys see it so that you guys can formulate your theories accordingly. Okay, so this is, for those of you who may not remember, we're in the laboratory. Clover has been sealed off on the other side, and Lotus is hacking the computer so that we can get something going, which eventually we're gonna, start the fire. Okay, Junpei was for once at a loss for words. What kind of job do you have? What are you? I'm unemployed at the moment. I used to work for a cybersecurity firm, but I quit. Why? Lotus blinked. Huh? Oh, it was just something. She stopped typing for a moment, and her face fell. This was not an avenue of questioning to be pursued, Junpei realized, and quickly shut his mouth. Lotus's fingers began to move again, and in a few seconds, she was back up to speed. As she typed, more letters and symbols that meant nothing to Junpei began to pour across the screen. What are you doing right now? I'm gonna try and brute force it. Brute what? A brute force attack is, well, the short version is that I just attacked the thing head on. The long version? Without looking up or slowing down, she began to explain. A brute force attack is one of the simplest ways to break a cipher, she told him. It checks every possible combination until it finds the right one. For a complex cipher, it can take a very long time. The thought of doing something like that made Junpei feel tired, but Lotus explained that she was writing a program that would just run such an attack on its own. It's not the most elegant solution, certainly, but given the circumstances, there isn't much else I can do. Even as she talked, her fingers never slowed or missed a key. Junpei couldn't help but feel a little odd. Oh, but back to what we were talking about earlier. What were we talking about? The wireless display. It's kind of strange if you think about it, isn't it? How do I put it? Well, let's say you write a program that calculates an addition problem for you, alright? So you enter 1 plus 1. The screen will show you 2. See? Isn't that strange? No? Not really. Oh, come on now. Of course, a caveman like you would think it was strange. You said so just a minute ago. You're just not getting it, are you? Who calculated 1 plus 1? The, main computer, right? You said it's connected to the monitor wirelessly. Yeah, but someone who grew up in a cave wouldn't know that, right? They'd probably think that this thing here, the monitor, is doing the calculating. And once they've decided that, they'll start examining this monitor. They might poke the screen or something. Ah, I see. The color changes when I press it here. Then they might investigate the hardware on the inside. Ah, I see. So this wire supplies power. Eventually, they might even cut the wires. Ah yes, just as I expected. When this wire is cut, no results appear. Therefore, it must be this device which does the calculations. But the truth is that, just like you said, the computer is doing the calculating. But these cave people wouldn't know that, because they have no idea that the monitor and the computer are connected wirelessly. Lotus continued to type. Junpei scratched his head. So, what are you trying to say? Nothing, really. It's just, I thought maybe, what if the relationship between human beings and our brains is like that? Huh? Well, let's say you stick a bunch of electrodes into parts of the brain. A scientist examining the signals they send out might say, interesting, so stimulating this part of the brain causes this person to see colors. That must mean this neuron cluster controls that function. Okay, let's see what happens when I cut out this part. Ah, just what I thought. Cutting off this part causes that function to cease. Therefore, the human thought processes must occur in the human brain. You get it? It's just like this monitor. Maybe the brain is just an output device, like this monitor. Maybe our thought processes actually occur somewhere else, in a main body. We just don't know it. We never even think about it. Just like those cave people would know about wireless communications. We can't imagine that there's some unknown medium that transfers information into our brains, where we experience that information as thoughts. Junpei didn't say anything. Not so much because he had no retort. No, her argument just seemed silly, and he was a little surprised to be hearing something like it from someone like her. The brain is just an output device? Human thought actually occurs somewhere else. Did Lotus really think that? He wondered. It was a little creepy, Junpei thought. It sounded altogether too much like a bizarre cultish religion. Maybe that's the cause of Seven's amnesia. Oblivious to Junpei's increasing discomfort, Lotus continued. If memory is actually stored somewhere else, in some sort of main body, somewhere, maybe he hasn't forgotten anything at all. He's just having a difficult time accessing his memories because his monitor, his brain, has been damaged. I suppose that would explain aphasias and blindsight too. Perhaps they actually can't speak or see. The monitor just isn't functioning properly. I guess people with prosopagnosia could be suffering from the same thing. Wait a minute. What? He knew what aphasia was from watching medical dramas on TV, and blindsight was easy enough to guess, but he never heard the word prosopagnosia. Yeah, prosopagnosia? Before. Either have I, actually. What, you've never heard of prosopagnosia? Lotus spun around in her chair to look at him. Junpei just shrugged and shook his head. Nope. What is it? Well, put simply, it means a condition where the mind can't distinguish between human faces. In other words, my face will look the same as Clover's, or even yours. So they can't remember faces, which is how most people recognize each other. That means that people with prosopagnosia would have trouble recognizing even people they're close to. Usually they can make do by associating people with other things, their voices, their clothes, their hair. Does that mean other people's faces look like blanks? No, I don't think so. You've seen monkeys, like in a zoo, right? To you and me, all monkey faces look the same, even though they're obviously half faces. It's almost impossible for a human to distinguish between them. The zoo staff that works with them would learn to identify different monkeys, eventually, but you and I couldn't, unless one had a scar or something else to set it apart. That's how people would be to someone with prosopagnosia. Prosopagnosia, huh? Didn't even know that kind of thing existed. Junpei did his best to act as though the entire lecture hadn't gone entirely over his head. And, what were we talking about? The idea that your brain is just an output device, like a monitor. Are you serious about that stuff? Not really. I was just kidding for about half of it. What about the other half? Well, I guess I was just adulting. Not funny. Lotus's smile had something rather masochistic to it. It's nothing more than the story I made up out of boredom. Don't take it seriously. It was the first thing that came to mind, and I talked just about it to kill time. But it looks like I don't need to talk anymore. Why? I don't have to kill time any longer. As she spoke, Lotus raised her right arm high, and brought it down on the enter key. The program took only seconds to analyze the system. Chunks of text flickered on and off in quick succession, and then a line of numbers appeared, blinked, and disappeared. The screen cleared, and all that was left was the word accepted. Piece of cake. Lotus would have clearly patted herself on the back if it would not have made her look entirely ridiculous. After a few seconds, the accepted disappeared to be replaced with 9 squares. Okay, so this is probably going to be the same as what I've seen. Yeah, okay, so this is the same. But yeah, Lotus is actually very interesting. Sorry, I've got my grid here for Clover's paper. Okay. Because, like, the stuff that she talks about, just guessing around and, you know, like, not really meaning anything, it's always super deep. So, I'm pretty sure there's something more to it. But anyways, that is her idea of what we need to be doing. And I am going to go ahead and skip on through. Oh, never mind. I can't I can't do it anymore. I wanted to ask you something. Okay? Junpei, you went into door 5 with my brother, right? Did you hear him say, like, anything weird? Why is she asking me this? Junpei wondered. That's right, because last time she tried to talk to us, and then she said never mind. This time she's actually talking to us. What? The more he thought about it, however, the more it made sense. Snake had been gone for a long time. Clover was quite attached to her brother. Of course, she would have been worried about him. He thought back to when he'd gone through door 5, hoping he might remember something, even a small something that would help her. However... Sorry, Clover. I can't really think of anything. I mean, he did mention that his hearing exceeds that of a regular person or something like that, but that's about it. Okay. Clover's words were barely audible. She nodded vaguely to Junpei and turned to walk away. Hey, wait a minute. Look, I don't know if I should ask you things, but if you don't mind, I was hoping you could tell me if, is Snake, I mean, was he born? You're talking about his eyes. Yeah. No. He wasn't born blind. When he was a kid, he got in an accident. A really bad car accident. He couldn't see after that. And his arm. His arm? Yeah. My brother's left arm is, it's not like a normal person's arm. It's fake. It's not a real arm. The accident hurt him really bad. To save him, they had to cut off his arm. Is that all you wanted to ask me? Talking about her brother had clearly taken a great deal out of Clover. Junpei nodded. Look, I'm sorry for making you talk about all that painful stuff. Clover only shook her head and walked off down the stairs. Oh, that's so weird. Okay, anyways, something else is probably gonna happen eventually, but I'm guessing that's it for this area. So, onward I go, and I'll see you guys in just a few minutes. We are in the steam engine room now, and Santa's been talking about how we're a bunch of guinea pigs on an experiment, and again, the dialogue option stopped. So it says, but it does seem like a possibility, you know? With that, he turned and walked away from the winch. Junpei and Ace followed him. You know, speaking of experiments, Santa suddenly stopped. There's this experiment some scientists did with rats. First, they took a square C-shaped tank and filled it with enough water that the rats could drown. The tank has 2 exits, A and B. Exit A is pitch black, so dark even a rat can't see anything. Exit B, however, is electrified, which means the rat can't leave right through it. So, what would a rat do if it was put in this situation? Which exit would the rat choose? There was a moment of silence after Santa posed the question, and then Ace responded. B, of course. The rat has no way of knowing that exit B is electrified. Exactly. The rat goes to exit B. Of course, like I said, it's electrified, which means the rat can't get out that way. So, after a lot of trial and error, the rat finally finds exit A. I can't say that's very interesting or relevant. It's simply the story of a laboratory experiment. You're right, it isn't very exciting. Yet, these scientists repeated this experiment over and over, using hundreds of different rats over several generations. This produced some surprising results. With each generation of rats, they took less time to find the correct exit. Eventually, a rat was put in the tank who instantly chose exit A without even attempting to go to exit B. But even that wasn't the most impressive thing. The same experiment was conducted in another laboratory, far from the original one, with the same results. No, on second thought, the results weren't really the same. The rats in the second experiment began the trials with significantly faster times than the first rats in the initial experiment. These rats were not related to the rats used in the first experiment, and had never even come into contact with them, and yet, they all easily found their way to exit A, even as though they already knew. What did it mean? Are you suggesting something like telepathy? They were passing information from one another through some undetectable medium. Ace looked skeptical. Santa snorted out. How the hell would I know? I'm not any kind of scientist. I don't know what made him do that. But I do know if that story is true, and if you've got another explanation, I'd sure love to hear it. Come on, let's get going. There's still a lot we haven't checked out, and we gotta get the hell out of here before June passes out. Without waiting for a response, he turned and started walking. Junpei, however, wasn't quite ready to leave the topic alone. Hey, wait. There's something I want to ask you. Santa stopped and turned around. Why did they use that tank for the experiment? Huh? Well, I mean, it seems like you could conduct the same experiment without the water. They could have just used a dry box, you know? If they needed to motivate the rats to escape, they could have, I don't know, put some bait by exit B or something. I mean, do they really have to make it so the rats can drown? Santa gave a grim bark of a laugh. You know the word emergency comes from the same root as the word emerge? You ever think about that? Well, an emergency is something urgent, often something dangerous. And to emerge means to sort of come out, or appear, or rise out of something else. So, what's going to emerge in an emergency? Inspiration. Inspiration? Yeah. Think about it. When the chips are down, you either crack or your mind focuses and pulls up what you need. So, in an emergency, your real potential emerges. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. That's why the rats had to drown. They had to be in danger. There had to be an emergency for inspiration to emerge. Interesting. Junpei suddenly felt cold. The back of his head was aching and his stomach felt strange. Okay, so what's really interesting about this is all the stories that they've been telling you about the people that they've shown the paintings to of the dog that was all like weird and hard to see. It's all that same concept of people tapping into like some source of information that lets them react in a different way. So keep that in mind, because I'm pretty sure you guys can see there's some kind of concept or theme there, especially with these folk here that have been like trapped in this very extreme situation and forced to do some very strange things while they're here. So anyways, I'm gonna keep on going, but if I run into any more cool little bits of info, we will definitely check it out. I did have a feeling that we were gonna run into Santa's backstory again, and it looks like we're gonna learn more about him and his sister. So here we go. We didn't have parents. They bought it in an accident when we were still kids. So I had to be like her dad. And that meant I bought her Christmas presents every year. On Christmas Eve, I'd leave the present next to her pillow. And the next morning, she'd come running into my room with this big smile. Look! Santa left me a present! Santa got me that doll I really wanted. I'm so glad he got the letter I wrote. I was the one who told her to write those letters. I'd say, write down something you want and mail it to Santa. The address I gave her was somewhere in Northern Europe that doesn't exist. Anyway, she'd write the letter and stamp it and send it out. And then a few days later, it'd show up back in her mailbox, marked address unknown. I'd open the letter before she figured out they'd been sent back. Once I had the letter, I'd go around to a couple stores with some money I'd saved up over the year and buy her the stuff she'd asked for. It took a lot of saving, but I managed to buy her presents every year. Junpei was silent. He could think of nothing to say. June looked down, uncomfortable. The wall next to him suddenly groaned. Either he hadn't heard the sound or didn't care. Santa kept talking. But one year, her letter was different. She didn't write a list of toys she wanted or anything like that. Instead, it said, "I don't want any presents this year. Instead, I want you to make my wish come true. My wish is that we'll be happy like this for a really, really long time." But I couldn't make that wish come true. Some Santa I am. Santa looked sad. Junpei had never seen him look sad before. He wasn't sure he liked it. Junpei decided it was probably best not to ask Santa any more questions. But what happened? June glanced up at Santa quickly as she spoke. He answered, but only with an effort. She died. She was killed 9 years ago. There was nothing Junpei could say. His heart felt like a great lump of lead. June bit her lip and looked away. Her face was pale. Alright, let's go. Okay, so this is the same, but I bet you it has to do with something with the fact that Seven was looking into those kids that got kidnapped. And I also believe that Nona, Lotus's daughter, or child, I guess we don't know if it's a girl or a boy, was missing as well. So there may be a pretty big connection between everybody. They just don't know it yet. Alright, this little warehouse is fun, but at least once we get done with this, we'll be able to go to the safe ending. And that's exactly what I want to do. So, hang tight, and we'll be there in just a few short seconds. Well, never mind, because apparently I don't get to skip this part either. Junpei heard a noise. He spun around just in time to see June collapse in front of the fence. June, are you okay? She didn't respond. Junpei spun back around to face Ace. I'm sorry, I gotta go check on her. You do the box thing, alright? Just put the cards in the boxes. I'm counting on you. He shoved the cards into Ace's hands and ran off towards June. Are you alright? What happened? Junpei called out to her as he ran. As he arrived, June was climbing to her feet with Santa's help. I'm sorry. I'm fine. I just tripped. Don't give me that. Now's not the time. But it's true. I tripped over a box. Junpei put his palm to her forehead. Her temperature was much the same as it was when the last time he checked it. She wasn't hot like she'd been before, but she was still warm. Her fever wasn't completely gone. I saw her fall. I think she really just tripped on something, you know? Junpei would have been more than willing to agree if June hadn't needed quite so much help standing up. Still, to fall down like that, I think she probably, my voice, I think she's probably still a little messed up. June was doing her best to busy herself brushing dust off of her dress. Her smile looked a little embarrassed and her face was a bit flushed. But she did look a great deal better than she had. Still. Alright, well, let's get out of here as fast as we can so we can get you to a hospital. Oh, I don't think it's anything that serious. I just need a little medicine and some sleep and I'll be fine. Medicine? Medicine, huh? Well, if we could get in touch with anyone outside, I bet Ace would swing that for you. Easy. Ace? Why? Huh? Don't you know? He's the president of a pharmaceutical company. Cradle Pharmaceuticals, the name, I think. Oh, Cradle Pharmaceutical. Their flagship product is an anesthetic drug called Soparil. 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 Junpei couldn't shake the feeling that he'd heard about Soparil before. Santa continued. Soparil. Soparil is an anesthetic that is gaseous at room temperature, similar to nitrous oxide. It takes only a few seconds to spread, and even a small amount is very effective. For these reasons, it found widespread acceptance within the police and military forces in numerous countries. It was an effective crowd suppressant and room clearer, and is practical, ethical, and humane. Developed 6 years prior, it was made from the extracts of several different roots. It became popular almost as soon as it was made public, with many governments placing large orders. Demand for Soparil skyrocketed, and as it did, so did the stock of Cradle Pharmaceuticals. Why do you know all this? Santa's information was interesting, but Junpei couldn't help but feel a little suspicious. Santa's reply was blunt and simple. I heard it from the old man himself. From Ace? When? By the number 4 door at the central stairway, when we were searching the second class room. Remember how Snake 7 and you went to door 5? I asked him what he did for a living, and he said he ran his own company. After that, we just started talking, and I guess it just came up, you know? Are you worried about something? No, nothing. As he spoke, Junpei looked over toward Ace. He seemed to be having difficulty with the 9 boxes. What the hell is he doing? He turned back to June and Santa. June, don't push yourself, alright? Yes. Santa, could you take care of her? Sure. He gave them both a short nod and then turned and headed toward Ace. What are you doing? Ace's back was to him as Junpei approached. The older man turned around to look at him. His face was pale and covered in sweat. What happened? Nothing. My vision has gotten rather blurry. I think perhaps because of fatigue. I can't see very well at the moment. What can't you see well? These pictures. Ace held the cards out to Junpei, splayed and out in the shape of a fan. I don't care to admit it, but I may have be developing presbyopia? Growing old is a difficult thing. He made the best attempt he could at the self-deprecating smile, but his face was flushed and his lips were pale and drawn. At any rate, I'll leave the rest to you. I'm feeling awfully tired, so if you don't mind, I'd like to rest for a bit. He shoved the cards into Junpei's hands and walked quickly away. Junpei looked at him quizzically. How could simply looking at cards have tired him out? Junpei looked down at the cards in his hands. All the pictures were quite clear, and each person was easily recognizable. Was Ace's vision truly so bad? But if it wasn't, what had made him so uncomfortable? That was when Junpei remembered what he had heard from Lotus much earlier. Oh, there's that word again. Prosopagnosia. Well, to put it simply, it means a condition where the mind can't distinguish between human faces. In other words, my face will look the same as Clover's, or even yours. So they can't remember faces, which is how most people recognize each other. That means people with prosopagnosia have trouble recognizing even people they're close to. Maybe he's got prosopagnosia. Junpei took another look at Ace. He sat at the base of the stairs, looking quite depressed. It was reasonable, of course, that he'd feel that way. If he really did have prosopagnosia, there is no doubt it was a depressing and painful experience. Still, Junpei didn't feel like patting him on the shoulder and telling him everything would be alright would help that much. Still, Junpei felt perhaps it was best if he kept Ace's condition to himself, at least for the time being. Oh well. Doing his best to clear his mind for the task at hand, he turned back toward the boxes. It was time to solve the puzzle of the 9 boxes. Okay, so this is all the same. I'm sorry that my reading's a little bit off. I don't know why, but I'm just not doing that well today. I seem to get flustered, especially when it's super philosophical. See? Can't do it. Alright, I'm gonna do this 9 thing again, and it's gonna be fun because I had so much fun last time doing it. Alright guys, we're on the final stretch for the safe ending. We've already discovered the 2 9 doors, the coffin's still a-knocking, and here we are running around. We're in the hospital room right now, so let's see what happens in the safe ending, shall we? Junpei and June ran to the large hospital room together. As quickly as they could, they searched around and under the beds and in the corners. She's not here. No, she isn't. Alright, just in case, we should go take a look in the shower room. The shower room? That's where her brother is. She might have gone to see him. June bit her lip. She knew, as Junpei did, that there was only one thing to see in the shower room, and it wasn't pleasant. Well, we might as well check, right? Let's go. There was a screwdriver stuck between the door and the frame. Junpei and June slipped through the door, moved down the hallway, and stepped into the shower room. No luck. Yeah, I don't think she's here. June's voice was faint, and she placed her hands over her mouth. Her face looked a little green. The stench of the room was almost unbearable. It had grown far more unpleasant since their last visit. If Junpei had eaten the lunch, he definitely would have had difficulty retaining it. He wanted to leave the room as soon as possible, but he had to be sure. And the only way to be sure was to check the other side of the divider. Wait here. June offered no resistance and nodded weakly to Junpei as he reached around the divider. He stopped at the corner and turned his head. As he'd expected, Clover was nowhere to be seen. The only thing on the other side of the divider was a dead body, lying in a reddish-brown puddle of dry and drying blood. There are many ways a man can die, but this? The skull was shattered, and the head a little more than a pulpy mass of brain, bone, and viscera. The left arm was horrendously twisted into a horrific alien shape, and the bright white of the ulna shining through the remains of the skin and muscle. Huh? Wait. Bright white. Ulna. Bones. The pieces fell into place. Junpei remembered something Clover had told him in the laboratory. My brother's left arm is, it's not like a normal person's arm. The accident hurt him really bad. To save him, they had to cut off his arm. Of course. Of course! Why hadn't he realized it earlier? Clover had told Junpei the snake's left arm was prosthetic. But the left arm of the corpse behind the divider was clearly a real human arm, or at least it had been, once. That meant the corpse. What do you guys think now? Junpei and June headed back toward the large hospital room. They stepped through the door and out of the shower room. I know people are freaking out because it just shattered everybody's theory. But Clover's still gone, so we need to find out where she is. Do you think she's still in the coffin? Do you think Snake's body is actually Snake's body? Oh, the possibilities! Okay, down the hallway they went, searching for Clover in every corner. They reached the stairs when Seven appeared, breathless and yelling. Junpei! June! Where were you guys? He looked pale, and his face was drawn. Something terrible had happened. Junpei's breath caught in his throat. Did something happen? Seven drew a shaking hand across his face and gulped down a breath of air. Clover's dead. I found her in the first-class bathroom. All sounds ceased for Junpei. The world was an empty, muffled expanse. Then, he began to hear his own breathing. June's mouth moved, but he heard nothing. She tried once more, and then her energy was gone. She collapsed against the wall. He could have helped her, but he hadn't, and now she was dead. So he stood there, frozen in place. Clover. Why? Why had this happened? He forced his body to move. Each step felt like another nail pounded into his heart. Finally, he was in front of her. He knelt and placed 3 fingers against Clover's neck. No pulse, no breath. But she was still warm, and her eyes were closed peacefully. It would have been easy to think she was asleep. Easy, that is, were it not for the slowly expanding puddle of blood beneath her. He traced it to the source on her back. a gash just beneath her shoulder blade. Was the weapon a knife, perhaps? If it was a knife, the killer had taken it when they left. When he closed his eyes, he saw Clover's smile. Her innocent smile. Her energy. He would never see her smile again. He could have done something. He could have helped her. His stomach twisted itself into a sickening knot. Junpei lifted the limp June from the floor and carried her from the bathroom. Are you alright? It was a foolish question, and he knew it. Yeah, I think so. Her voice was weak. The fever had gone down, but the emotional scars she received were not likely to recede as quickly. Junpei laid his hand on her shoulder, and they walked back to the bedroom. You should get some rest. He lowered June until she was sitting against the bed. She nodded once and stared at the floor. There were 4 others in the room: Ace, Lotus, Santa, and Seven. They all stared at nothing, their faces drawn and tired. After a while, they drifted into the bathroom to see Clover's corpse themselves. Once everyone was back in the bedroom, Junpei walked slowly to the center of it and looked around as the slumped figures gathered there. Who was the first to find the body? Me. Seven spoke from behind Junpei. He turned around. Seven's hand was up. Why'd you come to this room? To look for Clover. Why else? I found her body in the bathroom. As soon as I did, I ran outside. I got to the top of the stairs by the casino and yelled as loud as I could. Hey guys, I found her, but it's bad. She's in the bathroom in the first-class cabin. Come quick. Or something like that. Then I went back to the bathroom. Ace, Santa, and Lotus showed up real soon after that. But I guess you two hadn't heard me or something, cause you didn't show. So I took off down the stairs to look for you. After that, you know the rest, right? Junpei nodded and closed his eyes. There was one more thing he needed to ask. Seven, there's one more thing I'm worried about. What's that? When we finished all the puzzles in this room and got the door open, you stuck one of those plates in between the door and the frame, right? Why'd you do that? Come on, didn't I already tell you that? I did it so that the door wouldn't lock, so we could come back to this room. Oh, you think I did it? Well, I don't know. That kind of depends on what you say, doesn't it? Seven sighed and shook his head. Follow me. There were 2 doors standing next to one another. He opened the one on the right. Behind the door was a closet. Seven stepped inside. He stood in front of one of the shelves that filled it and gestured toward a small box. The box was a small metal cube. He looked at Junpei. This is the reason. This safe. We couldn't open it when we were getting through this room. I figured there might be something pretty important in it. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Besides, I figured eventually we might figure out what the numbers are for the safe. And if we did, I didn't want to screw around with door 5 again. So I put that plate in the exit door so we could get back that way. You get it now? Junpei nodded and looked at the safe. He grabbed the handle and shook it. Nothing happened. It was locked as it had been when Seven found it. There was one change, however. Just underneath the safe was a pile of fine, reddish-brown powder. Rust. Junpei stared at it for a moment. Had someone opened the safe, dislodging the rust? Junpei left the closet. Seven followed him back to the bedroom. It was cold and quiet. No one spoke. They sat, frozen in place by shock and grief and fatigue. The room felt tiny and oppressive, and the thick metallic smell of blood filled the room. Junpei turned and headed for the living room. Anything to get out of there. Was there some other clue, perhaps? Anything that might lead him to whoever had stabbed Clover? He took his time and examined the room carefully. His eyes caught on the door. the door that led to the passageway of door number 5. Behind that door was the dead body of the 9th man. Maybe I should have another look at it, just in case. Quietly, he pushed open the door. The smell hit him like a blow to the face. His lungs contracted, unwilling to inhale such fetid air. Acid boiled up from the base of his stomach, churning what little food was left in a violent froth. It was too much for him, and he vomited. A thin stream of yellow water and bile splattered onto the floor. He wiped his mouth weakly and stared at the dead body. Chunks of torn flesh lay in an arc around the body. What remained of its intestines had slid out onto the floor. The pool of blood that framed it was half dry, but so thick that it had taken on a texture not unlike that of egg yolk prepared sunny side up. Anybody hungry? On the floor, next to the broken mass of the man's head, lay his glasses, plaques spidering across the lenses. The blood stains near them had already dried, like scabs on the floor. That was when he noticed. It's gone. His bracelet. It's gone. It had been there when Junpei had gone through door 5 before. He was sure of it, right next to the glasses. But now, it was gone. The number 9 bracelet was gone. But why? Had someone taken it? He was turning it over and over in his mind when he heard Seven's voice. Huh? Where'd Junpei go? It had drifted out of him from the living room. Junpei walked, slowly, out to the hallway. Oh, there you are. Were you looking for something in the hallway? Seven looked up as Junpei entered the room. Did you find something? He thought for a moment before he responded. No, nothing. Technically, it wasn't a lie. He hadn't found anything. In a way, in fact, that was the problem. Something he'd expected to find hadn't been there. The 9th man's bracelet. Ugh, why can't I read today? What's up? Well, I wanted you to take a look at something. What is it? Seven led Junpei back to the bathroom. As Clover's corpse came into view, he felt his heart flip, and then fall to the bottom of his stomach. Something between a sigh and a groan escaped his lips. What was it that you wanted to show me? His voice was hollow and empty. I searched Clover's body again. I found this. As he spoke, he moved around Clover's head, then knelt down and flipped open her right hand. What? She was holding a piece of paper. I haven't actually looked at it yet. Didn't want to disturb the crime scene, you know? Basic stuff. Well, I did borrow one thing. He wasn't sure what that meant, but it likely didn't matter. The paper was more important. He picked it up and carefully opened it. There were 2 sentences written on it. The truth had gone, truth had gone, truth had gone. And now, truth is asleep in the darkness of the sinister hand. What is this? Some kind of secret code? Seven peered over Junpei's shoulder at the note. Junpei stepped away from Clover's body and into the living room. He began to pace, attempting to decode the note. The first clue was likely the phrase sinister hand. Sinister hand means... Oh god, I didn't know I was supposed to pick something. Let me save. I need to save. Yes, because I don't know what it means. I'm guessing the left hand? Because that would be Snake's hand? Sinister was a term used in heraldry that meant to the left of the bearer of a coat of arms. The left hand. The left hand. What did the left hand mean? Junpei looked at his own left arm. At the bracelet on his wrist. Did the darkness of the sinister hand have something to do with the bracelet? He examined the bracelet closely. There were 2 protrusions on either side of the face. Left and right sides of the face. Left and right. Left and right. Right and left. Truth is gone. Truth. gone. It sounded funny. What did it mean? Truth gone. Maybe those two words. Oh god. Okay, so I think the left hand is actually Snake's hand, not their hand, but that's what I'm thinking. Okay. Truth switching them. What else could they mean? Reading them backwards. Does that make any sense? Truth gone, truth gone, truth gone. Reading out loud's not gonna help. Switching them, or what else could they mean? Switching them? What else could gone and truth mean? Truth, of course, meant something that was correct, something that was fact. In other words, something that was right. It would follow, oh, gone, like they left. Oh. After all, someone left, they were gone. In this case, however, they were clearly referring to the directional homonyms. So this means truth equals right, gone equals left. That seemed to make sense. Junpei looked at the bracelet again. At the two protrusions on the left and right of the face. Junpei pressed them in the following order. Oh my god, okay. Oh god. Truth is gone, truth is gone, truth is gone, right? Isn't that what it said? Wasn't it? Right, left, right, left, right, left. And then... What? One after another, the 8 numbers flashed on, then off, of the face of Junpei's bracelet. He checked one more time to be sure. 1, 4, 3, 8, 3, 4, 2, 1. Huh? Hey, what are those numbers? Junpei didn't answer. He couldn't answer. He had no idea what they were either. Besides, he was sure to forget the numbers and the order they came in if he said anything. 1, 4, 3, 8, 3, 4, 2, 1. Muttering the numbers to himself over and over, Junpei headed toward the bedroom. 1, 4, 3, 8, 3, 4, 2, 1. Oh, safe ending. Before long, he found himself in front of the safe again. The lock was the only device he could think of that required a sequence of numbers such as the ones he just discovered. Besides, someone had opened the safe at least once already. Had Clover come to the bedroom to open it? Junpei slowly dialed the numbers that the bracelet had given him. 1 to the right, 4 to the left, 3 to the right, 8 to the left, 3 to the right, 4 to the left, 2 to the right, 1 to the left. Finished. Junpei heard the small, telltale sign of a lock opening. He grabbed the handle, took a deep breath, and pulled it up. Inside was a piece of paper. It was roughly the same size as the one Clover had been holding. Junpei picked it up. This is what it said. Fact number 1. The Nanori game was played once before, 9 years ago. Fact number 2. The person with the number 2 bracelet attended the game 9 years ago. Fact number 3. It was planned by the following 4 people. Cradle Pharmaceutical CEO, Gentaro Hongo. Cradle Pharmaceutical Chief of Staff, Nagisa Nijisaki. Cradle Pharmaceutical R&D Supervisor, Teruaki Kubota. Majority shareholder in Cradle Pharmaceutical, Kagechika Musashiro. I must punish them for the innocent lives they sacrificed. This is the only warning they will receive. That innocent souls might be saved. I now state the truth. 0. So Snake's been in this game before. Junpei left the closet. There were 5 people waiting for him in the bedroom. Ace, Lotus, Santa, 7, and June. He looked at each of them in turn, then slowly placed his hands in the pockets of his vest. Sorry, but do you think you could all come with me? Come with you? I want all of you to go to the big hospital room. Why? There's something I want to be sure of. What do you want to be sure of? I want to know if the person I suspect is really the culprit. Wait, then you're saying? Yeah, I think I've got it figured out. I know who killed Snake and Clover. The atmosphere in the room changed. Grief was suddenly gone, replaced by a tension like the strap of leather stretched to its limit. 5 sets of eyes stared at Junpei. He pretended not to notice. Anyway, if you could all please move to the big hospital room. I'll explain everything as soon as we get there. Then, almost as if on cue, the bell began to ring. They all heard it. It was the bell from the clock in the main staircase. The bell rang 5 times, then ceased. It was 5 o'clock. They only had an hour left. We don't have a lot of time left. Let's go. Slowly, one by one, they followed Junpei out of the room. I didn't realize this episode was going to be so long. Holy crap. Like all the other ones, they ended like super quick. Actually, before we get started, I was hoping you could do something for me. Junpei stopped in front of door 3 and turned around. Ace, 7, and Lotus, could you please place your palms on the red? Huh? Why? If we needed to get to the shower room, why don't we just... No, we're not going inside. Once you've authenticated, step away from the door. Why? Please, just do it. Or perhaps you don't want to know who killed Snake and Clover. Junpei's implication was clear, and 7 understood perfectly. Fine. What about you, Ace? Lotus? Very well. Sure. Quickly, they pressed their palms onto the red. Once they had finished, they stepped away from the door, as Junpei had instructed. 3 asterisks shone from the red's display panel. Junpei approached it and held his bracelet over the scanner. He made quite sure he didn't place his palm on it, instead only brought his bracelet near it. The 4th asterisk appeared. Just as Junpei had expected, it was possible to authenticate without placing one's palm on the red, so long as the bracelet was brought near it. Junpei pulled the lever down. Door 3 opened like a hungry mouth. 9 long seconds passed. And the door shut, unfed. Junpei walked slowly back to the others, who were waiting some distance from the door, talking to one another. Santa and June had joined them as well. It looked as though they hadn't found the chance to break into the conversation yet. As Junpei approached, they turned to look at him, curiosity playing on their faces. Before long, the other 3 did as well. Clearly, they're all expecting some answers. Thanks. I appreciate your cooperation. Clearly, they'd hoped for something more forthcoming. He continued. By the way, Ace, would you mind if I asked you something? What is it? Do you know who I am? What? What kind of question? Just answer it, please. Who am I? You're Junpei. Of course. Who else would you be? Unfortunately, that's the wrong answer. Actually, I'm Santa. What? Ace's voice was full of surprise, but it was also tinged with confusion and fear. Everyone else looked nearly as surprised. Santa looked especially shocked to discover he was actually someone else. If he spoke, however, the trap would be exposed. Junpei quickly continued. The clothes I'm wearing, I borrowed them from Junpei, and the clothes he's wearing are mine. We had a little swap. That's ridiculous. Impossible. So you're saying I'm not Santa? Of course you aren't. Why? What makes you so sure I'm not Santa? If you were Santa, then door 3 wouldn't have opened just for us right now. 1, 7, 8, 3 equals 19. 1 plus 9 would be 10. The additional root would be 1. But the 4 of us just opened the door 3. You can't possibly be Santa. Your bracelet number isn't 3. It's 5, right? Obviously then, when it was too late, Ace realized his mistake. He set his jaw and glared at Junpei. You're exactly right. My bracelet number is 5. As he spoke, Junpei lifted his wrist up to show everyone the bright red 5 on his wrist. Sorry, Ace. I tricked you. Of course, I'm not really Santa. I'm Junpei. Who would possibly think I was? It's obvious I'm not. To think I was is ridiculous. But I guess you couldn't see just how obvious it was. I asked you before, didn't I? What makes you so sure I'm not Santa? And you answered, if you were Santa, then door 3 wouldn't have opened just now. Most people wouldn't say something like that, as their justification for why I'm not Santa, I mean. The first thing that would come to anyone else's mind wouldn't be their bracelet number. There'd only be one thing they'd say. One sentence. You don't have his face. Ace, you have prosopagnosia. Am I right? Junpei's voice was quiet and calm. He knew the truth. So did Ace. He could hear a sudden buzz of conversation from the others. Prosopagnosia? What's that? He heard Lotus begin to explain it with them. Ace glanced at them, then turned back toward Junpei and sighed. Very well. I confess. I have prosopagnosia. I cannot differentiate human faces. Is that what this is about? You want to mock me for my disorder? No, not at all. I'm not making fun of you at all. In fact, I feel kind of bad for you. No, the reason I brought this up is that there's an excellent chance the person who killed Snake has prosopagnosia. Ace's face tightened. His eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Junpei leaned casually against the iron piping of one of the beds. I'll just come right out with it. I think it was you, Ace. You killed him. Junpei was suddenly very aware of 5 pairs of eyes on him. He had their undivided attention now. The room had grown very, very quiet. Junpei took a deep breath. That's ridiculous. What possible evidence do you... I have 3 pieces of evidence. The first, think back to a few hours ago. You made us argue over the 3 doors here in the big hospital. There was no way all 7 people could go through them. Lotus suggested that we sacrifice one of us. Lotus looked away awkwardly. Junpei glanced at her and continued. Then you, Ace, said, I'll stay here. Why would you say something like that? It's pretty simple, really. You didn't want us to see the dead body in the shower room. You see, if Ace stayed behind, there were only 2 doors the rest of us could go through. Doors 7 and 8. There was no way we could get through door 3, the shower room. You knew that, didn't you, Ace? That's why you volunteered to stay behind. Come on. I think that's going a bit far. I can understand if you're jealous of my bravery, but please don't devalue my actions. I only wanted to save the rest of you. Surely you can understand my altruism. Altruism, huh? Junpei stared off into the darkness at something very interesting and lazily began to dig a persistent bit of wax out of his ear. You already knew, didn't you? You knew that whichever doors we took, eventually we'd end up back in the big hospital room. What on earth are you saying? Of course I didn't know that. How could I have? Really? Yes. Pleading was not something they'd heard from Ace before. Junpei pulled the piece of wax from his ear, glanced at it, and flicked it off into the darkness. Ah well, that's cool. I still got 2 more pieces of evidence to say you're the killer. The second is that, as I said earlier, you have prosopagnosia. Then you mean to imply that a person who can't distinguish human faces must be a bad person. Junpei, they call that prejudice. No, I'm not that stupid. Then why? Well, before I explain, I suppose there's something I should tell you. The corpse in the shower room, it's not Snake's. What? Ace's face went pale. The others looked confused as well. If the body wasn't Snake's... I didn't put it together right away, but there was something Clover told me. She said the snake's left arm was prosthetic. he had lost his real arm in an accident. But the body we saw in the shower room, let's call him Guy X. Guy X's left arm was definitely flesh and blood. In other words, Guy X couldn't possibly have been Snake. Oh god. No, that's impossible. Ace started muttering deliriously to himself, shaking his head back and forth. Junpei was long past caring. Let's say, hypothetically, that the killer didn't have prosopagnosia. If that were the case, he would immediately realize that Guy X wasn't Snake. Even if the clothes were the same as Snake's, their faces would be completely different. It would have been obvious they were different people. And yet, they still killed him. Why? Why would they kill a stranger who'd only just shown up? On the other hand, if the killer did have prosopagnosia, it made sense. They thought Guy X was Snake and killed him. Wait just a moment. Let's say you're right and I mistook Guy X for Snake. Even if I did, I would have no motive to kill him. Why would I want to kill Snake? I could think of at least two motives. One, Snake knew about your past. If he ever revealed what he knew, that would have been really bad for you. You really didn't want that to happen. So, to make sure Snake's mouth stayed shut, you killed him. 2. Snake had a grudge against you. You knew that, or at least you could have easily assumed he did. Even without exposing your identity, he was a threat to you. You never knew when you might be attacked. You couldn't ever let your guard down. Every moment was a moment he might try something. You didn't want that kind of danger hanging over you, so you... Hey, hold on a minute. For the first time since the beginning of Junpei's explanation, someone besides Ace spoke. What's the past that Ace wouldn't want us to know? Why does Snake have a grudge against him? Look at this. He hands Santa a small piece of paper. Okay, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm really sorry I have to do this, but this episode is super long. And it's supposed to be the shorter videos, and I want to make sure that you guys have a chance to see it all. Like, I wanted to do it in one video, but I have no idea how this is going to turn out. So I'm going to end the episode right here. I may research it and see how long this episode or this ending has left, but we're going to go ahead and end it here because I don't want this to be like a stupid long video. I have to cut out a good portion of it, so I'm hoping it's not too terribly long. But yeah, I just don't want to make it too crazy. So I'm sorry. We will get to the truth of the safe ending in the next episode for sure. And then hopefully we'll be able to clear the next ending in the next video or so. I don't know. I didn't realize the safe ending was going to be this long. So let's take a break. Let's take a breather and we will get back to it in the next episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you enjoyed. I'll see you guys in the next MAMJ. Let's go. Junpei's mind went blank. All his thoughts were replaced with endless, hissing whine. Driven by little more than instinct, he began to walk toward Lotus, slowly. Each slow movement of his stiff limbs brought him closer to her corpse. Finally, he stood next to her. Robotically, he bent down and put his hand against her neck. There was no pulse, no rise and fall of breathing. She was slightly warm. Something, somewhere in Junpei's shaken mind, told him that she had been killed recently.